Hello, friends. Welcome to another podcast. My name is Dr. Jason Wiggins, and I am your Generation Z and Millennial expert. Welcome to today's podcast. Today's date is January 14th, 2021, and we are almost to the weekend. It is Thursday. So thank you, everyone, for joining. I appreciate your listenership as we reach, I believe today's number, episode 88. So we're dialing on 100. And I appreciate everybody that's listening. And thank you so much. I appreciate all the nice feedback and the emails that I've received. So thank you again. So we're just getting started today. And today we're going to talk about something that's very important, I think. And it's sometimes overlooked, especially when we're young. And yeah, with the New Year's resolutions and people trying to improve their overall health, it is important to take a look at your health and how to take care of yourself. And so, as millennials and Gen Z, yes, I know you're young, you're vibrant, you're like Superman and Superwoman. You can run through brick buildings. Nothing will faze you, and that is fine. But as you get older, many of those things that you did running through brick buildings and not taking care of yourself, unfortunately, it will come back to haunt you at some point in your life. And I've learned that as well. As I've mentioned in previous podcasts, it's no secret I am not a Gen Z, and I am not a millennial. I am a Gen Xer. But I also understand what it's like to be young. I was young once, but I am no longer too young. But I can tell you the things I did to my body and the abuse that I provided to my body, and now I feel the pains as you get older. And why I thought of this topic was this morning, it was 5:30 in the morning. My bones were chilling as I was running outside. And granted, it is in San Diego, but it still gets cold. It was probably 50 degrees. And I know what you're thinking. If you're in the Midwest or in Iceland or Russia or any of those cold territories, you're probably wishing it was 50 degrees and you were running outside. However, it was 50 degrees. I was running outside. I was cold. My bones hurt. And I started thinking, what if I had taken the steps when I was younger to take care of myself? I did a lot of the sports that kids do, including football, wrestling, rugby, boxing, just to name a few sports that were not conducive to being non-injury prone. Those were injury sports. They were physical sports, and there were many concussions during the sports. Specifically, boxing was definitely not helpful for the brain. And so, therefore, I can only hope that there are not repercussions moving forward that will disable me because of those injuries. Let's use, for an example, football players, NFL football players. As a Gen Z and millennial, you may know another football player that maybe played in college or professional. And when they retire, many of those individuals can barely walk because of the abuse, the surgeries, the drugs that were put in to keep them going. Those are the real things that happen in professional sports. And again, that takes a disastrous toll on the human body. And then let's think about things about what's important for our health. Eating right. We all know that eating right, eating out of the 5 food groups, and if you're like me, you may not even remember what the food groups are. We learned them back in the early years of school. But I do know there's 5 food groups. And out of these 5 food groups, specifically vegetables, meat, and poultry, are things that we should eat on a regular basis. But at the same time, you have to watch your cholesterol. You have to watch your sugar, depending if you have diabetes. And you have to watch your overall health of what you're eating. And that's important. That will help us live a longer life, longevity, and also help us with not developing other chronic diseases in the future. So as I mentioned, I'm in my mid-40s, and I used to do something that I have no idea why I did it. And it mind boggles me today that I ever did it. But back when I was 13 years old, maybe 14 years old, so we're going back 30 plus years ago, I used to pop my knee. And yes, I popped my knee, which you have to be very careful because it's like popping your fingers. You can develop arthritis because of the bones. And fortunately, I don't believe I've developed it yet, but I remember my parents basically disciplining me. Every time they saw it, me popping my knee, they would discipline me and I would get in trouble for it. And I wish I would have listened to them sooner, but it was just a bad habit, like cracking your knuckles. I was cracking my knees. Don't ask me how I did it. I couldn't do it again, thankfully. But those are just key elements of taking care of our health, because what we do today, what we did yesterday, will ultimately impact how we can operate tomorrow. I used to lift a lot of heavy weights. And that was another thing. Again, I had shoulder impingement. And for those that may not know what shoulder impingement is, it's where all of a sudden your shoulder becomes off-kiltered and it becomes weak to where basically the muscle, I don't want to say evaporates, but it no longer works like it should. And for the simple things of life, like throwing a baseball and being able to do things like that, you can have a tough time doing it. So then you have to go through physical therapy and hopefully get some of that movement back, because if you don't, then you have to go through the surgery route. And the reason why I discuss this is I was lifting heavy weights. I mean, going back about 6-7 years ago, I was still bench pressing around 340 to 350. And that's a lot of weight for a 180-pound body at the time. Well, since then, I had to stop lifting weights because of the shoulder impingement. Even though it improved, it's still never going to be exactly where it was before. So I lost 20 pounds and I lost a lot of that muscle that I had previously. But it was the abuse on my body because I ran through walls, as I was talking about earlier. Remember, when you're 20, 30, and maybe hitting 40, you can run through walls. You're fearless. Nothing's going to happen to me. And you can eat the way you want to eat. You can eat everything that's not good for you. And speaking of not good for you, I'm not joking when I tell you this. When I was about 30 years old, I was going through the drive-in at McDonald's. And when I was going through the drive-thru at McDonald's, I was with my girlfriend at the time. Now I was an ex-girlfriend. And they said, hello, as I went up there. And I'm like, hello. And they're like, the lady said, I haven't seen you in a while. So therefore, at McDonald's, they see thousands of people on a daily basis. And I hadn't been there in a few months, and they remembered me. Why? Because I was going in 2 or 3 times a day eating. And that just tells you right there, I was eating very poorly. And I was also eating like grandma cookies. For those who may not know those, they have a little wrapper, so it has a picture of a grandma on it. I was eating grandma cookies, eating at McDonald's. And then one day, one of my very good friends said to me, imagine this, Jason. If we took a scalpel and cut you right down the middle. A bunch of hamburger char would come falling out. And that, for me, was a real eye-opener. I stopped going to McDonald's. I stopped eating cheeseburgers. I stopped eating grandma's cookies. And I started trying to learn how to cook. And then I started dating, and now she is now my wife, and she is a great cook, and she got me on the healthy kick. So now, like I mentioned, I'm in my mid-40s. I started eating healthy. I really try not to eat the yucky food that's not good for you, that will promote diabetes, promote, issues that you don't want to deal with. Therefore, I've learned that living a healthy lifestyle also means, if you enjoy an alcohol beverage of once in a while, that's fine. They say wine is good for you. I do not partake in any alcohol, but I try to eat healthy. I try to exercise as much as I can. And that is part of being vigilant and utilizing health as an important aspect to, remember, to achieve what you want. Because we can't live forever. But what we can do, we can prolong our life, prolong the experiences with our family, our friends, and when our children are growing up. Remember, as millennials and Gen Z, you're likely going to be having children at an older age, because that's what's happening now. It's very common for Gen Zs, and well, you haven't hit 40 yet, but millennials can contest to it. They're having kids at 40 years old now. And all of a sudden, that is the new norm. So I know this is a little different than the conversations we usually talk about, but again, the podcast is relevant to everything for Gen Z and millennials. And we have to stress the importance of health and taking care of ourselves. And what better time to stress that when it's in the new year? 2021 is going to be your year. Maybe the gyms haven't opened in your area because of COVID. So find other ways to promote good exercising. If you can run outside or do jumping jacks in the house or do push-ups or run in place, whatever it may be, whatever you enjoy, find it. And if you don't eat the healthiest, then think about how you can improve. You don't need to be the best cook from day one, but choose better foods. Choose something that you can cook that you know is healthier than what you're doing. What's important is finding slight improvements, because slight improvements will advance your life, advance the quality of your life. And again, that will also help negate the possibilities of contacting COVID. So therefore, I want to thank everybody for listening to today's podcast. I hope you got some good, healthy habits of how to prolong your life, ensure good health, and stop eating grandma cookies and McDonald's foods like I did. But anyhow, I want to thank everybody. If you're listening in the afternoon or evening or morning, thank you. Take care. And as usual, our podcast runs Monday through Friday, with a few exceptions here and there. We'll definitely be here on Monday through Thursday of our daily podcast. So thank you. Take care. We'll see you on the next podcast. Bye-bye.